Divine principle, resurrection. Number 5, heaven and paradise. Christians up to the present have been confused in their concepts of heaven and paradise because they have not known the principle. If Jesus had accomplished the purpose of his coming on earth as the Messiah, the kingdom of heaven on earth would have been established at that time. If perfected man living in the kingdom of heaven on earth had gone to the spirit world as a spirit man having attained the divine spirit stage, the heavenly kingdom of God would have been realized at that time. However, the kingdom of heaven on earth has not been realized due to the crucifixion of Jesus, and not a single person on earth has attained the divine spirit stage. Consequently, no spirit man has entered the heavenly kingdom of God, which was created for spirit men of the divine spirit stage to live in. Therefore, the heavenly kingdom of God still remains vacant. Seen from the standpoint of men, who are to be its inhabitants, it may well be said that the heavenly kingdom has not yet been realized. Why then did Jesus say that whoever believed in him would enter the kingdom of heaven? This is because the original purpose of his coming to earth was to realize the kingdom of heaven. Nevertheless, Jesus died on the cross without having realized the kingdom of heaven on earth due to the disbelief of the people. Jesus permitted the thief who was crucified beside him to enter paradise with him, because the thief was the only one who believed in him at the end, while the people of that time had not believed in him. Luke 23:43. Jesus emphasized the possibility of entering the kingdom of heaven when he still hoped to accomplish his mission as the Messiah. But upon his crucifixion, which prevented the fulfillment of the will, he expressed the fact that he was to enter paradise. Paradise is the region of the spirit world where those spirit men who have attained the life spirit stage by believing in Jesus while on earth go after death and stay until the gate to the kingdom of heaven is opened. 6. Spiritual phenomena occurring in the last days. Man who fell in the perfection level of the growth stage enters the age in which he can restore his position before the fall of the first human ancestors by restoring the perfection level of the New Testament age, representing the growth stage, after having passed through the Old Testament age, representing the formation stage. This age is called the last days. Since this is the age in which man can communicate directly with God, just as he could right before the fall of Adam and Eve, there are many people on earth today who can communicate with the spirit world. The reason for God's promise that in the last days he would pour out his spirit on all flesh, Acts 2:17, can be understood only through such a principle. In the last days, a person may receive the revelation that he or she is a Lord. In many cases, such people fail to find the right way, believing themselves to be the Lord of the second advent. What is the reason for this? Originally, God created man and blessed him to be the Lord and dominator of the whole creation, Genesis 1:28. Nevertheless, man failed to realize this blessing due to the fall. When a fallen man attains a spiritual level corresponding to the position of Adam and Eve right before the fall, by having been spiritually restored to the perfection level of the growth stage through the providence of restoration, then God gives him the revelation that he is a Lord, signifying that he has been restored to the position of having been blessed to be the Lord of all creation. The saints in the last days who have manifested such devout faith as to be entitled to the revelation that they are lords are in a position similar to that of John the Baptist, who came in the days of Jesus with the mission of making the way straight for him, John 1:23. Accordingly, in proportion to their ability, they also are given the mission of making straight the way of the Lord of the second advent. Thus, they receive the revelation that they are entitled to be lords because they were chosen for this mission. Those with powers of spiritual communication are liable to become antichrists. Upon receiving the revelation that they are lords, they may act wrongly, as if they were the Lord of the second advent, since, not knowing the principle, they are unaware of the situation. This is actually why it was prophesied that in the last days there would appear many antichrists. It is common that those with powers of spiritual communication fall into conflict and confusion among themselves, because the content of their revelations and the class and level of the spirit world to which they belong differ from one another. 1 Corinthians 15:41. These men of spiritual communication are, in fact, all headed for the same destination. But because of the difference in their spiritual standard, the part of the spirit world seen by each can vary, and these differences lead them into conflict. Those who are in charge of a certain mission in the providence of restoration are often ignorant of their horizontal relationship with others who have spiritual communication, because they have only a vertical relationship with God, which relates to their partial mission within the whole providence. Accordingly, they come into conflict because the will of God of which they take charge appears different to each. This kind of horizontal conflict is inevitable. because God gives each the revelation that he has a Lord in order to encourage him to do his very best in carrying out the purpose of the providence of restoration. In his respective mission, which is partial and limited, the person in charge is in fact the only one and the best one, thus he receives such a revelation. Meanwhile, when devout men of faith develop spiritual communication after having attained the same spiritual level as Adam and Eve before the fall, they are apt to fall themselves through a test or temptation of the same kind which Adam and Eve failed to overcome. It is in fact very difficult to overcome such a temptation. As long as one remains ignorant of the principle, it is truly regrettable that many religious men, having failed to overcome this test, have nullified in an instant the merit they gained through their long and bitter trials in the ascetic life. How then can we prevent such confusion among men of spiritual communication? God has given a partial mission to numerous individuals in order to accomplish rapidly the purpose of the providence of restoration, with each relating vertically to him during the process of the providence. Therefore, horizontal conflict among men of spiritual communication is inevitable. Finally, at the consummation of human history, all will come to realize that their respective missions were allotted to them by God with an identical purpose, the accomplishment of the providence of restoration. By establishing horizontal relationships with each other, they will be unified in their efforts to accomplish the whole purpose of the providence of restoration through the new words of truth God will give at the proper time. Then all men of spiritual communication will cease their stubborn insistence that their way alone is God's will, and will gain the right understanding of their providential missions. Thus, they will not only be able to overcome all confusion, but each will also be able to perfect his own mission in the course of his life in faith.